Hello and welcome to another edition of Another Book Review. This week I'll be reviewing Pygmy by Chuck Palahniuk. I'll talk a little bit about the author, go into what I liked about the book, what I didn't like about the book, and then finish off with who I would recommend the book to, and talk a little bit about what I'm going to be reading next time. So the author Chuck Palahniuk is probably best known for his novel Fight Club, which was made into a movie late 90s, early 2000s, either 1999 or 2000, with Brad Pitt and Edward Norton. He's also had another one of his novels adapted into the movie Choke. Those are probably his two best known works. I don't know very much about him other than that. He has been writing for quite a while. This book, Pygmy, is essentially a first-person account of a character who refers to himself as Agent 67, who is a foreign agent who is tasked with infiltrating America to pull off a terrorist attack. And he is described as roughly 13 years old by other characters when he first comes into the country. But the book is really kind of an examination of, a foreigner who is part of a despotic nation, his kind of take on America. So everything is kind of seen through his eyes. So everything is kind of described in that manner. So he is kind of given a host family in the Midwest. The city's really never named, and he goes about living his life as a normal person there. So going to high school, going to church, going to Walmart, things like that, and kind of describing his surroundings and the characters that he interacts with. He also has several other agents that he was trained with in the country he came from, which is also never named. It's the easiest kind of parallel to me is North Korea for a couple reasons, but it's basically like if North Korea took a group of agents, and was able to get them to go to America in order to coordinate a terrorist attack. That's essentially what the book is. And so what did I like about the book? The style is not really my thing. I'll say that kind of off the bat. But I did think that the second half of the book was a little bit stronger. I think the book is, when I say stylistically, the book is kind of written as somewhere between a satire and an indictment. It's not always quite clear who the author is satirizing. There's definitely a lot of critiques of American culture in the book and American people, but it's also kind of, when it gets to the chapters there are some chapters that are set in, I'll just say North Korea, even though it's not explicitly named, that are not necessarily satirical, but they are very brutal and realistic, I guess is how I would put it. So that kind of tone is a little off, but I did like the second half of the novel, kind of when the plot is being resolved. I thought that was handled well. Some of the moments that stuck out with me, there's a point in the novel where the main character is, I think, like a 4-year-old boy. And in this novel, when characters are for the country that is, again, let's just call it North Korea, takes children from their parents and tests them to place them. The state basically tests them and decides what their life path should be in terms of career and skill set. And the chapter dealing with him kind of leaving his family, I thought was actually really beautifully written. And it reminded me a little bit of Don DeLillo, maybe something like Mao Tu, the chapter there where there's a mass wedding. It reminded me kind of that. So I thought that was really well done. As far as like stuff that I didn't like, the whole book is kind of written from the character's perspective, the Agent 67, and he writes in kind of a broken English, which again is on purpose, I think, to make you understand how much of a foreigner he is. But sometimes it was difficult to follow what was going on. He constantly talks about the training that he has in terms of fighting, so he'll refer to martial arts moves constantly, and I thought that was kind of a joke that kind of wore thin. There are some funny points in the book. I mean, the book is kind of funny. It has its moments, but overall the tone to me was kind of brutal is the kind of the closest word. Everything is really over-exaggerated in a manner to make it kind of grotesque in a way that was not always funny to me. I think it's going to be a book that's going to be to your personal taste as far as what is comedy and what is not. That was kind of my issue, and I think the book has a lot of topics that I think are pretty sensitive. If you are someone who is sensitive to certain things in your reading, you may want to stay away from this book. There's an animal torture scene. There is a sexual assault. There is things of that nature. I'm trying to remember. There's a scene where kind of body parts are described after an alleged terrorist attack that's pretty gruesome. There's a mass shooting scene. So kind of all those things to me kind of were off-putting. Again, that's going to be kind of to your personal taste. I would recommend it to people who have a very dark sense of humor. I think you'll like this book a little bit more than I did. And I think that if you're a fan of his work in the past, from what I've heard of the way his other work is described, this is probably in that same vein. So that's kind of my review of Pygmy. I wish I had liked it a little bit more. I think that the writing style, while the premise I think is interesting, I think that the writing style and the jokes weren't as funny as I would have hoped, even though I think that the ending when the book is kind of resolving its plot, I thought that was kind of interesting. The other characters in the book who are not the main character, Pygmy is what the other characters call the main character. It's not his actual name, but that's kind of his adopted name once he comes to America. I thought the other characters were caricatures of Americans. I think that's why they're in the novel and described it the way that they are. The main character has something of a bond with the sister of his host family that kind of carries throughout the novel, and that's kind of the closest thing to like a real relationship we have. He interacts a little bit with the other agents he is kind of co-conspiring with, but I don't think you ever really feel that bond as tightly. So it was an okay book. I'm glad that I got a chance to read some of his stuff. I don't know if I'm going to go back and read anything else of his unless someone really recommended it to me. I think it was less to do with like I said, I think the plot was interesting, the hook was interesting, but I just, for some reason, the writing style and the way he went about telling the story just was off-putting to me, I guess is the easiest way to put it. So that's my review of Pygmy, and next week I'm going to be reviewing Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Until next time, please feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, and until next time, bye!